Paradox Pokemon are ancient and futuristic mons resembling ones we know and love. But when it comes to their abilities, it's pretty copy-paste, which can get boring real fast. So in addition to Protosynthesis and Quark Drive, I'm going to be giving these Pokemon an extra ability they could use as an alternative. This is part 1 of a 2-part series, focusing on the past Paradox mons. So drop your ideas for the future Paradox Pokemon in the comments and you might see your name featured next time. My rules are that the ability must thematically fit the Pokemon. I'm not just going to go with the best competitive ability, but one that also makes sense. And while I may use a couple abilities that their contemporary relatives have access to, I'm going to avoid overusing that trick. Starting off with Lando T's replacement, we have Great Tusk. I had a few good ideas for this mon, the runner-ups being Reckless and Stamina. Reckless seemed to be a decent fit for a prehistoric mammoth-like Pokemon. Competitively, it only has a handful of options to take advantage of this, notably Head Smash, which it does use occasionally. Stamina would be very powerful on this already super defensively tanky unit. It kinda fits, but Mammoths and Mastodons are less known for their stamina and endurance, and more known for their thick hides, size, and strength. So my pick, Battle Armor. Not as flashy, but very fitting. While it isn't as sexy competitively, it fits thematically over the other ideas. It's a solid ability to have on bulk up sets, as you can't be foiled by a straight crit. You could even beat mons like Rapid Strike or Shifu, who can't crit through your bulk ups, severely cutting its damage. Protosynthesis isn't quite as reliable on defensive Tusk, who would rather use leftovers, boots, or helmet, so having crit insurance would be a big upgrade. Moving on to Roaring Moon, I could have easily given it any of Salamance's abilities and they would have fit fine. Intimidate, Moxie, even Aerialate from Megaments. Luckily, we're a little more creative here on the Map Bud channel, and instead we're going with Strongjaw. Alright, maybe I had a little help from my buddy Magnus on some of these, including this mon in particular, but Strongjaw works thematically and competitively. You have an insanely strong stab crunch and jaw lock, which you can use to trap and set up on a more passive mon. Fire Fang and Thunder Fang are strong offensive coverage options now, since they're nearing 100 base power. It might be a better fit for it in metas without terrestrialization, since the Booster Energy Protosynthesis set synergizes nicely with Acrobatics and Terra Flying. Choice Band sets, along with other non-booster energy sets, would really appreciate the consistent power boost, and you don't rely on a one-time use item or Sun being active to have a useful ability. Like a lot of abilities we're gonna see, the consistency is what will give the appeal. There's also very limited lore for these mons, by the way, so coming up with good abilities is a little tougher than the Ultra Beast version of this video. Switching over to a special attacker with Flutter Mane. This is a mon who would appreciate a different ability option. I'm gonna nix Levitate and suggest some different classic ghost abilities, Curse Body and Infiltrator. These both have their merits and competitive uses, with one being totally random. Curse Body can be a clutch ability, with potential to disable attacking moves one hit. Get a proc on a choice mon to force them to swap or struggle, just take away a useful move to help teammates, and overall provides better long-term support Protosynthesis might not, while still being able to run Sash. Infiltrator is a consistent and situationally different ability that leans more into the offensive side. You ignore substitutes, screens that normally would reduce damage, and some other never used protective screens. I think Infiltrator would definitely be the cooler and better option, being able to work well in singles and doubles. You ignore Aurora Veil from Ninetales Snow teams, allowing you to hit at your normal power. Substitute is very common in singles, and you just completely disregard it and have your Scarf Flutter Mane come in and KO a sub-seed or sub-setup mon. Curse Body isn't bad at all, but a lot more situational with few chances to proc, as you can't and don't want to take a lot of hits with this glass cannon. Now on to the first of the legendary beast clones. We have Entei's counterpart in Gouging Fire. There were tons of great candidates flowing for this one. Some runners up being Anger Point, Magma Armor, Flame Body, and Mold Breaker, which all seem to fit one way or another. But I'm gonna go with the potentially controversial choice in Guard Dog. We all know the legendary beast debate between being dogs or cats. In reality, they do have characteristics of both, and Gouging Fire itself has characteristics of a massive lion combined with massive breeds of dogs, historically used as guard dogs. I think it's pretty safe to say Gouging Fire has that dog in him. This is a very limited and unexplored ability I think has a lot of potential competitively. Gouging Fire would no doubt be the best user, able to gain a +1 to its already great attack whenever intimidated. Couple this with the inability to be forced to swap, and you have a lethal setup sweeper. Intimidate is very common in doubles and fairly common in singles, making this a great option to run, not needing booster energy to gain a temporary attack boost. You punish the pesky Incineroars, Lando T, and apparently Scraggy in doubles currently, and whatever other mons want to drop your attack. The phasing protection is more of a benefit in singles, since you can Dragon Dance up without being worried about Red Card, Whirlwind, Roar, Dragon Tail, or Circle Throw rooting your sweep attempt. Next is our favorite bug on the list in Slither Wing. We could go with Compound Eyes, since they are there, or the boring route of Swarm, but I think these abilities are very situationally useful, as Slither Wing doesn't run inaccurate moves outside of maybe the odd Will-O-Wisp on support sets, while Swarm requiring you to be very low on HP limits its usefulness a lot. The much more fun option I'm going with is Guts. This ability is pretty associated with the fighting type already, and Slither Wing is a large, primitive, hulking attacker who would refuse to be slowed down by status. It also is better than making it Low Kicks 2.0 by giving it Tinted Lens. Flame Orb Slither Wing would be absolutely terrifying and no longer stuck in RU. 135 base attack, stab first impression, with a Guts boost on top would be enough reason to use it. Leech Life can help sustain any burn chip, along with some Flare Blitz recoil, while Stab Close Combat would shred anything else to pieces. Even its U-turns would be devastating chip if it wants to swap out against a defensive answer. It would be a slightly slower, but more powerful, bulky, and versatile version of Heracross that plays its Guts game a lot differently. Going from the bug to the fungi, next we see Brute Bonnet. This Amoonguss counterpart didn't spring too many great ideas into this noggin. Magnus was really pushing, and I quote said, "I was sleeping on Mimicry Brute Bonnet though. Just look at this great concept art." Brute Bonnet doesn't really have any synergy with terrains outside of Grassy. It doesn't have access to Terrain Pulse, nor would it want to use it either. Taking away the stab from Sucker Punch and immunity to Prankster moves would also suck, so I think I have to go with Effect Spore instead. A little on the boring side, but it would at least give some more usage to this underused ability. Pretty much every line with access, besides Vileplume and Shiinotic, have better abilities to use, and since it is basically a given for Mushroom Pokemon to have access to Effect Spore, why break the trend? Brute Bonnet has a ton of weaknesses, but also a fair amount of resist, so to be able to punish knockoff users along with some physical attackers using ground, ghost, water, and electric attacks would be a decent benefit. Not the greatest types to punish contact moves against, but you can definitely get some value out of the Brute, even sacking it to a close combat, Brave Bird, U-turn, Flare Blitz, or any of the other 100 moves it's weak to. A nice sleep or paralysis proc could change the whole game. It ain't helping this mon get out of ZU in singles, but it does give it a bit more utility in doubles where it's redirecting attacks into its slot. It can potentially get both mon status in the same turn. Back to the legendary beast counterparts, we have Great Neck ahead. Some preliminary ideas for the Throat Goat were Electromorphosis and Transistor. which felt way too strong, and also Cloud 9, which was a funny thought from looking at the Cloud Mane it's rocking. Ultimately, the most fitting pick has to be Lightning Rod. This mon pretty much looks like a lightning rod. It is tall and definitely appears like it should be able to redirect and absorb electric hits. It doesn't really need the immunity, seeing that it can't be paralyzed and 4 times resist electric, but the ability to swap in on any electric move and get a +1 to its already sky high special attack is satiating. It would be amazing in doubles as a support ability, allowing you to run electric weak Pokemon, potentially getting boosts on a swap. Your Thunderclaps would be even more threatening at +1, as 1 Volt Switch block could spell the end for your opponent. And if you think that's too powerful, just use your own Lightning Rod Raging Bolt to make sure no electric type moves are getting used at all. Screamtail is yelling at us, begging to be next, and I will oblige. This is another tricky one. Cute Charm jumped out at me as a potential suitor until I saw that the Paradox Pokemon are genderless, so it would be about as effective as Honeygather. After careful consideration, I decided to go with Soundproof. The amount of screaming this mon does makes me feel it should be immune to noises itself. This mon is absolutely more suited for a defensive ability, being a fast support option. You very rarely want to use booster energy Protosynthesis sets unless you're running some lower tier setup sweeping, so gaining an immunity to strong sound moves like Boom Burst, Hyper Voice, Psychic Noise, as well, and perhaps more importantly, to support moves like Parting Shot, Snarl, Roar, and of course Perish Song is a big upgrade. You have yourself a viable soundproof user to use on Perish Song teams to make sure you're having the most fun at the lowest risk possible. Another mon we don't really have too much backstory on is Sandy Shocks. This prehistoric magneton has very little to go off of besides its design. I flirted with giving it Sand Force, Static, and even Analytic, but what drew me in the most was Magnet Pull. While Sandy Shocks does enjoy a nice Protosynthesis boost, there's no doubt Magnet Pull would give it a huge role in competitive, especially OU. A Magnet Pull mon with Ground Stab would spell the end as we know it for most steel types, including Heatran, Iron Treads, King Gambit, Tankaton, to name a few popular threats. Then we have non-grounded mons like Skarmory and Corviknight, who would get sniped by its electric stab and be scared to swap in, fearing Shocks to double in itself. With an actual speed stat, I could see Sandy Shocks being very problematic in a sort of Drag Mag team resurfacing and turning into Drag Shock. It might even get banned in singles, as pivoting is so prevalent that steel types would never feel safe coming in unless carrying a Shed Shell. And last, but certainly not least, we're finishing the legendary beast Paradox forms with Walking Wake. But just before we get to its ability, leave a like if you enjoy this concept. If this video gets good reception, I'll make a version for the future Paradox Pokemon. A lot of ideas came to mind for Walking Wake. Water Veil is probably the most fitting, but also seems pretty lame. I also thought Dragon's Maw would be cool, but the most thematically fitting to cool ratio happy medium I came up with is Steam Engine. This mon is associated with Steam already, donning the signature move Hydro Steam. It's powered up in both rain and sun, suggesting this mon naturally thrives in both. It can also set both of these weathers and learns fire and water attacks. Steam Engine would allow it to get hit by a fire or water type attack and have its speed boosted to +6. There is little risk to activating this ability since you ×4 resist both types. While you already have 109 base speed, this won't always be super useful, but I can see it being really effective on choice spec sets late game. You can grab a Steam Engine boost swapping in and outspeed every mon the opposition has. Even Scarf max speed Regieleki while you have no speed EVs and a negative speed nature. It would be a good alternative if you aren't running Sun alongside Walking Wake, as it isn't a very difficult ability to activate, with fire and water attacks being fairly common. Those are my ideas for the past Paradox Pokemon getting new abilities. What abilities would you like to see them receive though? Let me know in the comments. Should I cover the future Paradox Pokemon? Give me some ideas on those, and I'll feature the best comments in that video. Shout out to May's tournament winner Divi Gupta, who took the title for the Doubles Hackmons Cup tournament. I'm also going to be holding theme tournaments coming up, featuring specific Pokemon. So if you'd like to play in those, join the Budzone Discord to sign up. A big thanks to my YouTube and Patreon members, including Goldbud Mr. Frank Beans. Check my links in the description if you want to support the channel. Thanks for watching, buds, and I'll see you soon.